Hi and welcome. My name is Kayla and this is episode 1 of an Average Knitter podcast. I'm so glad you clicked on this video. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today we are focusing on Andrea Mowry's So Faded Pint-Sized sweater. I can't wait to get into that with you. But first, a little bit about myself. I am a teacher, a wife, and a mama in southeastern Wisconsin in the United States. We actually just had a snow day yesterday. There's about 6 inches of soft, fluffy, white snow outside, and I'm going into school in just a little bit to teach, but wanted to take the time to record this episode. I love listening to knitting podcasts, turning them on while I'm doing stuff around the house, on the treadmill, sometimes watching them, sometimes just listening. I love them, can't get enough. I am always looking for podcasts or videos or tutorials about specific projects, something that I'm thinking about, something that I'm working on, and I can't always find what I'm looking for. So my desire is to create something that you can find when you're looking for a specific tutorial or review or information about a particular project. Hence why we're focusing on So Faded Pint-Sized today. I have 2 to share with you and talk about. Aren't they so fabulous? Oh my goodness, I love them. I love them so much. So a little backstory on these. I wanted to create something for my oldest probably about 2 years ago. We were still in the middle of COVID. I had several not good, negative, unsuccessful sweater and cardigan making experiences in the past, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Maybe you identify with that. Maybe you're like, yes, me too. I've had some really awful sweater making experiences. So when I felt ready to jump back into that, I wanted to find something that I could be successful at. Something kid-sized, because I wanted to knit for my daughter, but also because I thought that's smaller. If I make a mistake, it won't be as hard to rip it out, maybe. It'll go faster, just something smaller. Smaller is better. I have 2 kids, so if it's too big, the oldest will grow into it. If it's too small, we'll just let the youngest wear it. I searched and searched Ravelry. If you have never been on the website Ravelry, it's just a blast. I spend way too much time on there, but you can search and find just anything that you're looking for. I looked for sweaters that lots of people had made. Something that was knit in the round, which was new to me, and I was starting to feel a little bit more comfortable knitting in the round. Something with lots of stockinette, because I enjoy something with lots and lots of stockinette, and found lots of recommendations for Andrea Mowry's So Faded sweater. So Faded Pint-Sized is the child's version. I fell in love with the pictures. The fade technique, the way the yarn went from one color and blended into another. Oh my gosh, I couldn't get enough. And that led me down a rabbit hole of who is Andrea Mowry, and look at all these fade patterns that she has. And I want to try this one, and I want to try this one, and I want to try this one. Anyways, so decided that was the project, purchased the pattern, read through it. Okay, I can do this. There's a few things I'm not familiar with, but there's so many tutorials. There's so many videos on YouTube. I can figure this out. Now it's time to choose yarn. Fingering weight. I didn't have a lot of experience with fingering weight. Another cool thing about Ravelry is that you can search people's projects by the yarn that they have used. You can see which yarns people have used the most. Oftentimes, I find that the yarn a pattern is written for, or the yarn that's suggested, is maybe out of my price range, or not something easily accessible, or not something that I care to use. So as I was searching, I found the name Biscotte yarns popping up several times. People shared that it was very soft, that they really enjoyed working with it, and they loved the colorways. So I went on the Biscotte Yarns website. It wasn't sold local to me. I have three fabulous yarn shops that I can drive to, and none of them sold this line. So I was looking online, and oh my goodness, fell in love again. The colors are stunning. So Biscotte Yarns has a line called Bis-Sock. It's fingering weight approximately 85% wool, 15% nylon. not superwash, which was something else I had read a lot about and thought, okay, I want to try not superwash for this sweater. The colors are just stunning. The hand-dyed colors. Oh my gosh. I was actually on the website a couple days ago getting ready for this recording and was clicking and adding stuff to my cart just so I could compare the pictures and kind of stack different colorways on top of each other. I don't need yarn right now. I don't need fingering weight yarn. I don't need anything hand-dyed, but it's just so gorgeous. So if you've never heard of them, if you've never checked them out, please take a look. Biscotte, Biscotte yarns. Just fabulous. Anyways, pick some things out. They came in the mail. Oh, they were amazing. Amazing. So amazing. So this is the sweater I created for my then 6-year-old. I made the size 8, I think, for my 6-year-old, or what, like the next age up in sizes, and it worked out perfectly. She's just starting to outgrow it, which I guess means I should go yarn shopping and make another one for her, but we're getting close to spring and summer, so we'll hold off. I loved it. I loved everything about it. There were a few techniques I was unfamiliar with, but again, find tutorials, find videos, find blog posts. It's very doable. The cool thing about Bis-Sock yarn is that most of the colorways are sold in mini skeins of about 50 grams. So 4 mini skeins, perfect for this project. So as you look, this is raisin, blackberry smoothie, orchid, and this is my favorite. This is Ursula. We're a big Disney family, and I just love that there's a little bit of Ursula yarn at the bottom of this sweater. It was a little bit of a game of yarn chicken to work on the faded parts because I had just enough. I knew when I bought the mini skeins that I would have just enough yarn, maybe none extra. So maybe no extra, none extra. Anyways, I knew it would be close. So I would get close to where I thought it was time to fade. I knew that I didn't have much yarn left, but then I also had to save yarn for the sleeves. So it was this constant kind of going back and forth, always putting, something on scrap yarn or scrap needles, but it worked out. I think there's a tiny bit left of everything. So I just love it. I just love it. The yarn has pilled a little bit. FYI, it's not perfect, but my oldest has worn this sweater a lot. So why wouldn't it pill? Not excessive, but in the higher wear areas. So like here's I don't know if you can see that, but on the chest, there's a little bit of pilling, particularly you can see that there, particularly at the bottom. It's nothing that I can't address though. And again, for how much she wears it, I feel like it's very, very reasonable. I would definitely purchase this again. Make this again. I actually just washed it for the first time in a very long time because I don't want to wash it very often. The water was disgusting. I should have washed it earlier. The water was gross. But it was really nice to reblock it, and I felt like the stitch definition was even stronger after it was done being blocked. Look at this. This is so beautiful. Right there, can you see there's 2 little orange spots? I never noticed those before. So anyways, after about 2 years, just washed it, and it looks and smells better than ever. There's one mistake. It's not really a mistake. I know it's there. One of the cool things about this pattern is that there's supposed to be kind of like a garter shoulder, and I started and then forgot. So I don't know which side it was. Doesn't matter which side it was, but I started the garter and then just forgot and kept going in stockinette, and all of a sudden realized, oh no, no one cares, no one knows. So I just made sure I did it over on this side as well. This was super successful. I loved it. I didn't feel like it took me that long. Now, taking a long time is relative because we all have so much time to knit, right? I often do mine at night, sitting on the couch next to my husband, watching TV. If we're on a road trip, if I have a few minutes here or there, I didn't feel like it took me that long. So after that successful experience, wanted to make one for my younger child, totally different colors because she looks totally different than her sister, totally different coloring and hair. Asked her what she wanted. She said pink. which still rings true. So this is hers. From Biscotte Yarns in the Bis-Sock line. These are, the top one is Cheesecake, Sakura, and Julienne Rose. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love these. Again, I bought the 50-gram mini skeins, a little bit of yarn chicken. Again, a little bit of yarn chicken, but it went well. I didn't lose, but I ran out of cheesecake, so used a little bit of the Julienne Rose for the collar at the end, and I actually really like how that turned out. I would do that again. When I make this sweater again, I would take a little bit of the bottom, or maybe the darkest or highest contrast color, and put it up at the top. I really loved that. On this one, I remembered to make the entire garter shoulder, but it doesn't matter. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. Again, freshly washed and blocked, and just so fabulous. I love it so much. One of the most exciting parts is that fade. I felt like I was always knitting just another row, because I wanted to hurry up and get to the fade part. It's so easy to fade if you've never done it before. Again, there are tons of videos about it. So you're knitting with this main color, and then you sneak in a row of the second color, and then you go back to a row of the first color, and then you sneak in a row of the second color, and you do that as many times as you want. I didn't always do it as often as it said in the pattern, but it worked. It worked. I just love it so much. Love it, love it, love it. The yarn, the leftover yarn is so fun. Look at this. This is a bag of my fingering weight scraps. You can see that some of these are from the sweaters here. Some of these are from my Find Your Fade shawl, which I think that'll be our next video together. Will be all about the Find Your Fade shawl. I know I'm late to the party. I know most of you have, like, you heard of Andrea Mowry years ago. You've already made these sweaters. You've made the shawl. You've been fading for years, but it was all new to me and so exciting. It still is exciting. I wish I could fade everything. I'm looking here, and this looks like my Malabrigo Rios that was worsted. I'm gonna have to think about that. I don't know what that is or why that's there. Anyways, I just love it. I love it so much. I love the fade technique. I love everything about this. There were so many things that were new to me, and they went so well. So a little bit about my unsuccessful experiences. I don't know about you. I learned how to knit in high school as part of home ec. I started with cheap acrylic yarn from Walmart or Joann's, because that's what we had in our town. That was all I knew. And I started with straight needles. Both of my grandmas are very crafty. My mom is incredibly crafty. She still knows a lot more than I do. I call her up when I'm having trouble or need her ideas for something or need something repaired. I'll say, how would you do this, Mom? Started with straight needles and acrylic yarn. I think I made a scarf and a hat and mittens for my first projects. I was scared of circular needles. My mom had used them a little bit, and double pointed needles. I was scared. So my first pair of mittens, if you've ever made mittens, my first pair were knit on straight needles. So I made like a front and a back, and then I seamed them together. I still remember the yarn. So this was the late 90s. My winter coat was maroon on top and forest green on the bottom. And I was so excited. I look back and think, oh my gosh. But I was so excited at the time. The yarn I found was Lion Brand. It wasn't variegated, but it was kind of like, and it wasn't hand dyed. I don't know what you would call it, but it was kind of like self-striping yarn, but kind of not. And it was the same colors as my coat. So that it was cream and then maroon and forest green, and it was awful. But at the time I thought, I match. This is so cool. So can you imagine this high school girl walking around with this like Christmas holiday colored scarf, matching hat, matching mittens? I was so proud of myself. I thought I was so cool. I wasn't, but I thought I was. Knit several more scarves. I knit hats. Again, I was scared of circular needles, so they were all, knit flat and seamed up the back. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. Went to college and started making, a few scarves for friends. Started to learn just a little bit about what was out there, that there were maybe other fibers, wool, alpaca. When my husband and I were dating, I made him a scarf out of this really cool yarn that I had found that had quite a bit of alpaca in it. And the scarf pattern that I chose was like a ribbed pattern all the way up the scarf. So imagine it, a rib pattern is very scrunchy, right? Very squishy. So it could like spread this wide and then go back. It was incredibly warm. It was so warm. I loved the scarf. I thought I did an amazing job. I was trying to make him like me. Obviously, he already did. We got married. But, and it was like blue on the bottom and then white and then brown. It looked so good. But it was so warm because I just didn't know. And because it was alpaca, it was really, really fuzzy. And it was uncomfortable for him to wear it close to his face because he was like eating the alpaca fibers. Ugh. Anyways, you just don't know, right? You just don't know. We're all learning. It's a journey. It's a journey. These unsuccessful sweater experiences. So first, my first one, again, I think it was like end of high school, beginning of college. I was feeling really good about myself. I wanted to make a cardigan. This was right around the time that Lion Brand introduced their homespun yarn, which you can still purchase. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And maybe you've used it or you remember it. You can't describe it. You can't describe it. It is what it is. So I really wanted to make a sweater out of homespun yarn. I got kind of this bluish, greenish, brownish colorway. And back then I found all of my patterns either in my mom's old books or on the Lion Brand website. Because again, like Ravelry, you could search different parameters. Oh my gosh. I was still scared of circular needles, so I was looking for a cardigan pattern to knit flat, to knit on straight needles. Well, in order to do that, you knit every piece separately. So I knit the back, I knit the sleeves, and I knit two fronts. I knew nothing about gauge or swatching. I'm sure the pattern told me to swatch, but did I? No. I thought, well, I'm using the right needles, it'll be fine. And I remember there was a diagram with measurements, like, the back should be this many inches for this size and this many inches, and I didn't pay attention. And then, you know how a pattern usually says, like, bust measurement, finished bust measurement, there's recommendations for how much ease. Again, I had no clue. So I had made all these pieces, and I started sewing them together, and not even doing a good job at that, and it was huge. It was so big on me, but it was too short, but the sleeves were like, wait, it was just wild. It was wild, and there was no fixing it, and I was super discouraged, and I put it in a bag. And I don't know what happened to it. Maybe I frogged it and donated the yarn. I have no idea. So fast forward, I have kids. I really want to make a pullover sweater for my oldest. I find this cool purple variegated acrylic at Joann's, still feeling nervous about circulars. So I find an old pattern from the 80s, free online, knit on straight needles this time. I know how to swatch. I understand what gauge is. I understand what the charts and the measurements are about. So I start knitting. It's going pretty well until I realize it's really, when you have this commercially variegated, I think variegated is the right word. When you have this commercially variegated yarn, it's really hard to match up the colors and anyways, then you have to seam it all together again because you're knitting like the front and the back and the sleeve and the other sleeve. And I didn't seam it together properly because I thought, well, I know how to sew. I'll just sew it up. And she wore it, bless her heart. My daughter wore it. It worked, I made a sweater. But again, looking at it afterwards, I was like, oh man, this doesn't feel successful to me. I had so much to learn about what would make a project feel successful to me. There's nothing wrong with straight needles. There's nothing wrong with acrylic yarn. There's nothing wrong with free patterns that you find online. But these were the first thing that really felt like, oh, I've made a wearable sweater, something my kid can grab off the shelf in their closet and just put on, and they're gonna be comfortable. No one's going to, who cares what other people think, but I'm not gonna look at it and think, oh, I should have done that, and then that, and I wonder if I could change that. Nothing. I just don't think about it. They wear it, and it's fabulous. I had a lot to learn. Maybe you feel like that too. I would love to hear in the comments how did you start? How did you start your knitting journey? Were you like me, like straight needles for years and years because circular needles scared you? Was it acrylics all the way? Was your first project like something that someone in a yarn shop helped you create? I would love to hear more about you and how you started. After college, I met some people and started spending time with some friends. Katie, Emily, hi, who were part of a knitting group. And they started introducing me to the idea of different fibers, wool, Ravelry. They told me about Ravelry. I had no idea what Ravelry was and totally got hooked. Totally got hooked. They had so much to share. They used circular needles all the time, which took a little bit of the mystery out of it. It made it seem a little less scary. Like, oh, if my friends can do it, I can try. I can at least try. They use double pointed needles. They knit socks, which socks were like the scariest thing to me ever. It was so special to see what they did, how they created things. It made things like this a lot less scary. I had the guts to try knitting with circular needles, and now I love it. My very first trip into a local yarn shop, this was quite a while ago. I walked in, I had printed off a pattern that I wanted to knit, a cardigan from Tin Can Knits, which we'll talk about in another episode. I love Tin Can Knits. And they're so nice. The people at local yarn shops are so nice. I was so scared. I was so nervous. And one of the people walking there said, "Hi, how can I help you?" And I said, "I've never been in a yarn shop before." And all the people in the yarn shop kind of went, "Oh, we're so glad you're here." I said, "I've never been in a yarn shop before. I have a pattern I want to make. I need your help picking out yarn. I've only ever knit with acrylic, and I'm hoping to knit with something that is maybe not 100% acrylic." So that was my first project with a little bit of wool. I think the yarn I picked was maybe like 60% acrylic, 40% wool. It was a fabulous kind of first step into yarn shops and wool and trying something different and getting help and ideas from someone who does this for a living. I don't do this for a living. That's why I feel like an average knitter. I knit at night. I'm still learning. It's all a journey. Yeah, an average knitter. Thank you so much for joining me for this little chat. I hope something in this video was interesting or helpful. Please subscribe. Please leave a comment below. Let me know a little bit more about yourself. And I can't wait to see you again in my next video. We'll talk about the Find Your Fade shawl. Thank you so much.